We have such a good episode for you guys today. I'm so excited to dive into this. And our guest is going to be talking all about managing a family with three kids, which I can't even fathom. And one of her children has special needs too. So she's going to share about that and how that impacts her time management, her mindset, and just expectations of herself as a mom. And she's also going to, this is something that I know you guys are very excited about, pull back the curtain on the big numbers that go into making a business truly successful because she has a financial background. And we all see those really big, flashy numbers that people show from their launches, but they're not always telling the true story. So our guest is going to get really real and break that down for us today. She is a financial life coach and former ads manager for some of the top names in the coaching industry. So she has seen behind the scenes on both revenue, expenses, finances, ad spend, all of it in those multiple 6 and 7 figure launches that you guys are seeing. And after leaving her corporate job as a rocket scientist, which amazing, like that's so cool. I'm so excited for her to talk about that too. She completed a certification in personal finance planning and got her certified financial planner professional designation and helped hundreds of Fortune 500 employees as a financial wellness coach at PricewaterhouseCoopers. So she is a pro on this subject, and I cannot wait for her to dive into all of the different topics today. You can learn more about her at helloportia.com, and you can find her on Instagram at Hello Portia. So please help me welcome Portia Jackson. I'm so glad that you are here today.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thanks, Stephanie.
Yeah, of course, of course. So before we dive into this topic, I want to just hear about this whole rocket scientist thing. Like, can we just take a step back and start with how you went from being a rocket scientist, having your family, and then what you're doing now? So can you just take us on that journey?
Yeah, my resume is quite eclectic, and I think my parents are still a little bit confused as to what I'm doing with life, but they're okay. Anyway, so educationally, I guess, I was trained as in engineering. So I went to the University of Michigan undergrad, got my degree in mechanical engineering, ended up going to USC, Southern California, to get my PhD in material science. And so I was in the aerospace industry working with the US Air Force. I did an internship over in Japan for their version of NASA and was really into like, oh, maybe I'm going to be an astronaut. But believe it or not, I was 1 inch too short, which didn't make sense to me because I figured there's not a lot of room in space, like not inside, like space itself is huge, right? But inside, your little rocket thing, it's not a lot. So I think you would want tiny people, but I digress. But yeah, so I was in that field for about 5 years. I initially got my PhD because I love teaching. I love kind of taking complicated topics and ideas and making it into something that's practical and easy to apply. Because I had so many boring professors. No offense to if there's any Michigan professors listening to this, but in engineering, it tends to be very dry. And I'm like, I really want to do this. But in grad school, I realized it's more about grant writing, not so much teaching. And I was like, all right, peace out, I'm out. But I had 2 years left. I'm like, I'm going to finish this because I already started it. And it's kind of cool to say that you're a rocket scientist. So worked in the aerospace industry for about 5 years. During that time is when I got married. I had my first child, which is the one that has special needs, had my second one, and realized I need a lot more flexibility in my schedule. And so corporate life was not really what was going to provide that. And so that's when I actually started to dip my toe into the vast waters of online entrepreneurship because I knew I needed something that I could do from home. And this was pre-pandemic before everybody was on the work from home train, right? And so really it was just life kind of led me down to this path. And it started with one search. I remember it was a Google search that got me into one specific podcast and all the pieces started to kind of fall where they fell. And here we are today. And that was, 8 years ago.
That's so funny. I always say that my online journey started with a Facebook ad. So
yeah.
Because I was targeted very well, my ad with a Facebook ad. And that's how I entered the online world about 5 years ago. So it's great to hear from other people who have been in this space for a long time. I almost feel like we're like the quote unquote dinosaurs of this era because now everybody is now jumping on board.
It's so true. And the thing is, I have so many courses that I bought because I was a course junkie for a while. And then I was like a mastermind junkie for a while. And then I was like an event junkie. Like I'm always like, I want to be better. I want to learn more. But so much of that, even from just a couple of years ago, is so outdated now because it changes so fast. And that's just something I learned too, is to just kind of, take action now because it's just going to change. Like even from February of this year to now, it's already changed.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's so funny that you mentioned that because I bought a Pinterest course years and years ago, and I'm
Mhm.
now starting to add Pinterest into my strategy. So I went back to look at it and I was like, all of this stuff is outdated. None of this even, this is
Yeah.
not helpful in the
Yep.
slightest.
And so in my mind, I just have to like declutter all the time. I'm kind of like a minimalist, even though you can't tell from my office right now because we're decluttering for a garage sale. But I just had to draw a line in the sand. I'm like, anything I've purchased before this date, unless I'm actively using right now, I'm just considering as like it's just dead to me. And then just from here on out, it's just like anything I purchase, I have to use as soon as I purchase it. I'm no longer getting roped into like, oh, this is like a Black Friday sale or whatever. It's just kind of like you just gotta take action and see where it goes.
I'm the same way now, but in the beginning too, I was buying everything that came across my
Oh
Instagram feed.
yeah.
I was in everybody's program at one point.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah,
But it also got us to this point too, right? So it's just like
right.
it is what it is. Like I don't regret any of the things that I've done. Like because at the same time, it's like the knowledge we have now is because we did all of that. Of course, we can look back and be like, oh, 2013 Portia shouldn't have done that. Well, 2013 Portia didn't know what 2021 Portia knows, right? So it's a little bit unfair, and that's some of the stuff I've had to work through too, as far as mindset and business and all the
For
things.
sure. For sure. Anybody who's been doing it for a while has been
Oh, for
forced to
sure.
work through those
Yeah.
mindset
Yeah.
issues that come up. So, can we talk about your family a little bit before we dive into the numbers that I know that people really want to hear about? But
Sure.
I really want to hear about the dynamics of what it looks like in your life and your business. So, I know you have three kids,
Mhm.
and I know you mentioned their ages before we went live, but do you want to just kind of explain what that looks like for you and your family?
Yeah, so it's myself, it's my husband. We've been married for a little over 10 years. Our oldest daughter, which is our honeymoon baby, Johanna, is 9. She's the one that has special needs. She has a condition called lissencephaly. So her brain wasn't formed correctly in utero, but we didn't know this until she was turning 1. Like a couple of days before her first birthday, she started having really massive seizures. And we're like, well, this is not normal. And I had been saying that a few months prior. And everybody's like, oh, you're a first time mom, you're being a little paranoid or whatever. It's like, we'll just check at her 1 year appointment. And I was right the whole time. I was right. So again, if you have like that inkling in your gut about like anything, listen to it. Now I didn't know what it was, but I just knew something was just like, this isn't right. Like everybody else's kid is like making them crazy. And my kid's like a little bit too low key. But anyway, so that's that. And
I have
then
a story about that. I just want to interrupt you
yeah.
because I have a very similar story. So before my son was born, you get all the ultrasounds and everything.
Mhm.
And we got one of his ultrasounds. It was further along in the pregnancy. And one of his lips looked like it was a cleft lip. So
Mhm.
I was like, okay, that looks strange. So we asked a bunch of people to look at it. We have friends who are doctors. We asked them to like review the ultrasound. They're like, oh, no, no, no. It's just a shadow. There's nothing to worry about. And I'm like, that's not true. Like
Mhm.
I knew
You knew.
I had this feeling that something was going on. And even my husband, he's a nurse, he looked at it and then my son came out. Guess what? He had a cleft lip and
Yeah.
nobody believed me that it was happening. I said, this is my child. I know, I understand this. And thank goodness it wasn't a massive cleft. It was just a small one that was easily repaired with surgery. But still,
Mhm.
it's just that mother's intuition. You
Yes.
don't tell a mother that she is not right.
Yeah.
If she knows, she knows.
Yeah, and it's so true, and it's really in all areas of our life because I've been kind of diving into like more like learning more about my intuition because there's been times where I'm like I was spot on and didn't do it, or I was spot on and I did, or I was what I thought it was, but it was more like my ego or just like fear kind of so it's a thin line there, but it's if you're feeling it as strongly as we did, it sounds like, then I would definitely kind of follow through with that. But yeah, so that was our journey with that. Then we had our middle daughter Jessica, and then in between Jessica and our smallest one now, Jordy, who's 3, we adopted a child for a while. We brought him home from the hospital. And in California, the birth mother has up to, I believe it's 30 days to change her mind. And on like day 27 or so, she changed her mind. So we had to return him to his birth mother. So that was a whole thing. And then after that, we got pregnant, and that was a miscarriage. And then we had Jordy. So I say that I've been a mom to 5 kids, and I just have 3 of them with me. But it's definitely been a journey. And then the pandemic hit. So like everybody else, we got an air fryer, and then we got a dog. Probably would have been another kid, but I had 3 C-sections. I was like, we're done. I had my tubes tied for the last one, but yeah. So now we also have our boy Vino. So that's our family.
Oh my goodness. When you said that you had to give your adopted child up, I literally got goosebumps on my body because I've only seen that happening in movies, which probably
Yeah.
sounds
I was
terrible.
like, is this a Lifetime special or like what is
Right.
going on? It, like the whole thing was just so dramatic, the way the whole thing like went down. But I feel like everything happens for us, not necessarily to us. And it was weird because it was like a grieving period for someone who didn't die. Um, but it, that's life, right? Like you just kind of, for those 4 weeks, he had an amazing life. I don't know what happened after that, but for that period of time, for whatever reason, we were meant to be his parents. So
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you were able to be with him for that amount of time, at least. And maybe
yeah,
sometime in the future, you'll be reunited. You never know.
yeah,
Who
you
knows?
never know.
Yeah. So, can you just explain a little bit about where your business falls into this? So, are all of your kids in school right now? Like, what does that look like? Do you have specific days that you work? I just like to kind of paint the picture for people.
Yeah, so currently, like a snapshot of today, all of my kids are in school. So pretty much once they turn 6 months, they've been going back to like daycare, or they've been getting entered into like daycare or something like that. I was raised off daycare and being in school, so I never had any issues with that. I'm like, I think I turned out okay, hopefully. Maybe other people disagree. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, so they're currently in school full time. School drop off at 3 different schools. Lord help me, goes pretty much between 7:30 until, and I usually get home around 8:30, 8:45. And then for most days, I'm able to work until about 1:30, 2 o'clock. And then I go kind of pick them up, and I'm doing like more of like a night shift too. Now, again, there's seasons in business, seasons in life that has changed a lot, especially with the now we're kind of set in our routine. But even just a few years ago, it was much different because I left engineering because I wanted to get my certified financial planner designation, but you need 3 years of experience to do that. Really hard to do when you're working full time. So transitioned into another corporate job that I left 8 months later because I was like, well, that was not what I expected. It was more sales than helping people. And then from there, it was just like, okay, internship here, doing this here, like all getting experience, and all has led up to today in its own beautiful form. But in the midst of that it was kind of like a hot mess express for like a good 2 to 3 years in the midst of everything else that was going on. But yeah, right now we're kind of in our groove. It helps that we have like a babysitter that we have that can give me a couple of hours like at night if I need something, or on the weekend. And then, my husband, obviously everybody at this point pretty much works from home, especially because of the pandemic. So we're both here full time, which also helps too.
Yeah, that helps a ton. I am in that season of life currently at the time of recording this where everything is just kind of a crazy mess
Yeah. Yeah.
with losing childcare. My son's 2.5 at the time of recording this. So it's like toddler life is no joke. It's just crazy because
Yeah.
I'm the one caring for him as well. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a mess. It's a mess, but it's also a season, right?
It is a season. And
Yeah.
honestly, I mean, that's why I laugh when people put out like time management courses that don't have kids. And I get everybody has their life,
Yes.
everybody has their own commitments. This is not like bashing people who don't have kids, but I'm just kind of like, unless you know how you can help me get the most out of like 40-minute spurts, 20-minute spurts, can I send a sales email while I'm in line at the grocery store? Then you're probably not going to be able to help me, because your Pomodoro thing with your tomato timer and all the other little tactics sound really great. And I'm trying to figure out why I didn't know them when I was like single without kids. That probably would have been very helpful. So it's about knowing your system, right? Because I think a lot of times I had a lot of guilt because I'm like, everybody's using these, like they're waking all up at like 5 a.m. and doing all this stuff. And ironically, I wake up at 4:30, but that's just to go to the gym because I can't go any other time of the day. But I think I had a lot of guilt because I felt like I can't keep to these systems and structures that seem so helpful and beneficial to all these other people. Like, am I not motivated enough? Like, is there something wrong with me? And it's like, no, they don't have your lifestyle. They don't have 3 kids. They don't have one with special needs. They don't have, all this other stuff that's going on. So I just had to learn to give myself a little bit of grace and just be like, paper planner, let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm so glad that you mentioned that because when I was in corporate, I was all about the Pomodoro technique. Again,
Yeah.
I was 26, 25, I don't know, single, no
Uh-huh.
kids. I can get a million things done in a day. And that's when I
Yep.
started my business too. So it was easy to work 16-hour days. Was it
Absolutely.
exhausting? Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
now,
getting in the zone for a few hours. I'm just like, oh, that sounds so awesome. I'm like, my zone is like, okay, I got like, what is that? What's on it now? Paw Patrol, 30 minutes. Let's do
right.
this, or Frozen 2. If I
Exactly.
really have a big project coming up, I'm like, all right, wait, I think Elsa's on the horse. I gotta hurry and wrap this thing up.
Oh, that's so funny. No, but that's so accurate. So, what did this look like during COVID? Were your kids doing distance learning at home with you?
Yes. For the most of the year. So when did the world shut down? What was that? March, like 2020? Um, 20, yeah. So March until like September it was just, I'm hoping we're getting through the day. Like literally, like in the morning, coffee was my life coach. And at night, wine was my life coach. Cause I was just like, let's just get through this day. So yeah, they were all distance learning, and which for my oldest is kind of a joke. I mean, she's nonverbal. She's still in diapers, stuff like that. So like their distance learning was, let's all hop on Zoom at the same time and watch some ABC videos. Shout out to Jack Hartman on YouTube. I'm like, we could do this on our own. Like, why do we have to meet for this? My other one had like homework that they would send through, and like that was more on your own time. So that did make it a little bit easier. And then my little one she was like, there was no curriculum for her. So she was just fine. My youngest two did go back to school in September. So that helped a lot. And then my oldest was able to go back right before Thanksgiving, just because they only allowed the special ed kids to go back. And then that shut down once the surge happened. And then they were able to go back in March through the rest of the year. So really from March of this year of 2021, it's been pretty stable.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear
Yeah.
that you have some semblance of normalcy in your life
Yeah.
again.
And it's like, well, what does normal mean anymore either? Right.
That's
So
a great question. What is
yeah.
normal for your family right now?
Normal for us is like the drop off. The normal is I can pretty much count on 3 to 5 hours of uninterrupted work time per day for the most part, Monday through Friday. My youngest is home on Fridays because she's in like this kind of like a homeschool hybrid type of thing. I don't homeschool, but the way it's set up, it's kind of complicated to explain. But she goes to school, but it's like a homeschool thing. Um, and then my oldest also has like 15 plus hours of therapy a week. So usually Tuesday, Thursdays, I'm driving an hour to get there. She has 2 to 3 hours of therapy sessions, and then it's an hour ride back. We used to go to a place that was closer to our house, but the service wasn't that great. And it's just like the things we do for our kids, right? It's just like, why are we here if you're not that effective? So I was like, you know what? I have podcasts to listen to. Let's just make the journey. So
Yes,
that's
exactly.
also the thing. And that's how I listen to courses and stuff, is because I don't have time to sit down and spend those 3 to 5 hours going through a super long course. I listen to it in the car and just kind of mentally remember, oh, let me go back because I think they had a visual on that slide, or I can kind of fast forward. Everything is in like 1.5 to 2x speed. That's what that looks like. And then the other days of the week, we have a therapist that comes into the house to work on like behavior therapy and things. And then a lot of chores and stuff on Saturday. And I try to kind of relax on Sunday. My goal is to get a house manager. So a lot of the stuff that doesn't really need to be done by me can be done by somebody else, but that is kind of my reward for getting to like the next revenue mark in my business.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that because that's my next goal too. Well, for my first
Yeah.
goal is to retire my husband, and then I want to get a house manager after that
Yeah.
because I
It's
don't want to
almost
do
like
anything
chicken
I
and
don't
the
have to do.
egg, because it's like,
Yeah,
well, if you had the house manager now, you probably would hit that revenue goal faster.
true.
But then I feel like who's going to pay for the house manager if you haven't hit the revenue goal? So it's kind of like, yeah, chicken,
It
egg,
is.
egg, chicken. You never know.
It is. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about your mindset and how you handle everything, I guess, like with your family, with your business. Like, is there anything that you've noticed, even in the past couple of years, that has drastically changed? Like, what were you thinking a couple of years ago compared to where you're at now in your business? And have there any have there been any big like light bulb moments that went out, or any big transformations that happened for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, throughout all of this, the one thing that has stayed constant is my faith, because I guess I don't know how to describe it. I'm a Christian, but I feel like American Christianity is kind of like this. It's something I don't really want to associate myself with, but I follow Jesus. So we'll just say that, right? But even within that, it's just having like that comfort and that peace. Even when we got like my daughter's diagnosis, it's like, well, this is like a big thing, right? And rather than just kind of freak out, I'm just like, okay, what does the word say about, healing or faith or peace and things like that. But then even diving into, because coming into online world, eventually you're going to run into some type of manifestation coach, right? Like they're just out there just kind of waiting to like cross you off at the exit or something. But that's when I started learning about like manifestation and um your like your mindset, and kind of like taking things from in your mind, taking them from an idea to them actually being in your life. And the biggest part of that for me came from the book. It's called The Power of Habit, but I also saw it, other people teach it too, where it's instead of just focusing on like the things that we see in front of us, like our habits or our environment, what we're trying to do, but rather flipping it and really focusing on our identity and what we focus on, who we are as a person. And from there, everything is going to flow from that. So like, for example, I lost about 40 pounds after our third child, but before COVID. And then they found me during COVID. So now I'm like, I'm releasing them so that they never come back and find me again. But even with that, my identity is I'm a fit person. Like I've always been a healthy, fit, trim person. This current reality is not aligning with who I see myself being. And so from that, I started deciding, well, what are my beliefs that support this identity that I have? Okay, based off those beliefs, what are the habits that I have? Which means now what? Like now I'm going to the gym 5-6 times a week at 5 a.m. because if I feel good, it aligns with my identity. The times I try to go to the gym, eat better, and do all these other like things that we know to do, like air quotes around things, without having that identity, that's when it's like, I'll start next Monday. I'll start tomorrow. Maybe next month, maybe on the next new moon, the next full moon, the next half moon, the next whatever, sun rising, sunfall, whatever. It's just kind of like you haven't embodied it. So it's really hard to actually be it versus if you're just like, who am I? Who do I want to be? And just start acting like you're that person. Then those habits and everything really fall in line. It's been the easiest way for me to change anything, whether it's my business, my body, whatever, is like, what is that identity? And what would this type of person, this type of business owner, this type of mom, this type of fit woman, like what would they be doing in this situation? Is that what I'm doing right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually reading a book, The Power of Intention. Right now, I'm actually almost done with it by Wayne Dyer,
Mm-hmm.
which very similar to that book, The Power of Habit. I actually haven't read that one, but I will add it to my list because I love books like that. I could read them
Yeah.
constantly. And I'll link to both of those in the show notes for everybody. But one thing that I have noticed personally, and I don't know if you have too, is worthiness is a big part of it too. And actually not only creating those habits for yourself, but knowing that you're truly worthy of deserving that life that you envision for yourself too. Have you had to do any worthiness exercises over the years?
Oh my goodness. It's almost like, which one haven't I done? Because that was a really, really big thing. And I didn't even realize that was the thing until I started doing like the deeper personal development. I don't want to call it work, but like the inner stuff that we have to do, right? It is work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because just growing up, I was the one that was like, homecoming queen and valedictorian and all this stuff. So I had tied a lot of my identity to like the things I was accomplishing, and I'm worthy because I did this. I'm worthy because I got good grades. I'm worthy because I have a PhD. I'm worthy because I did XYZ, right? And it's just kind of like, if you start to associate your worthiness with what you do versus you just being worthy just because of who you are, it's going to be a very, very long road. And I realized that too, even in business, like we finally hit a 7-figure run rate in my agency. And then a couple months later, it's just like, whoa, was that a dream? How come we have not been able to do that again? And it's just like, you get there, but you can't stay there if you don't think that you're worthy, right? So I'm sitting over here trying to tweak stuff with my sales team or tweak stuff with our ads and doing all the tweaking. The tweaking needed to be inside, because it's like, if you hit that and you don't think you're deserving of it, or you didn't work hard enough for it or whatever, it's going to go just as fast as it came. And that's what I really had to work with last year, of just realizing like, I am worthy of this level of success. Like this doesn't make me a bad person, or, all the things, so many different things that come up with it. But yeah, the worthiness thing it's a black hole of like possibility there. Like so many, it's like pulling that string on like a dress. You're like, oh, let me just rip this off real quick. And it's like, before you know it, like the whole arm is gone, because it's probably bought it like Forever 21 or something. But it's just, it just kind of leads to the whole thing kind of falling apart, because there's so many things that are intertwined with that.
Oh my gosh.
No offense to anybody who shops at Forever 21. I think they're out of business though.
I have not shopped there in years.
I know, for quite some time.
Yeah, I have no idea. But I quickly realized that I was not 21 forever. So I was like, I don't need to be shopping here anymore anyway.
Yeah. I'm like, at some point the crop top's not going to fit in with my brand.
Right.
Anyway.
Yes. And also, just to touch on that a little bit, when you set those really big goals, like you said, like you reach this 6, 7, 8-figure level in your business and you're not truly happy with it, you're always just going to continue trying to reach for that next level. Right. And I think that's
chasing that carrot.
Exactly. And that's something I think people, especially in the beginning stages of business, need to know about as soon as possible, because we have people at every stage of business listening to the show right now. And if you're in those beginning stages, start doing the work now.
Yeah.
Regardless, wherever you're at in your business, if you haven't done the work, do the work.
Yeah.
Because that will not only catapult you to have more success, but it will also make the process a lot more fun and easy and joyful too.
Well, there's two things around that I just want to share that have been really like transformational for me when it comes to that. So when we're working with our clients, because we focus on online entrepreneurs and helping them create that financial foundation, step 2 of that is actually having them define what is your idea of a fulfilled life. And we break it down into 10 different life domains, like physical, spiritual, emotional, like your marriage, stuff like that. And we ask them to put a price to that. Right. So if it's like, oh, well, my level 10 life is, I don't know, going to the south of France for like 2 times a year or whatever. It's like, well, how much does that cost? Let's break it down by the month and let's put that into your budget. And the reason we do that, along with like, regular expenses like your water bill or paying your VA or paying your, email provider or whatever, is you now know that your target number is tied to your fulfilled life. It's not tied to some random number that got glorified and put on a pedestal online. Like, I don't know who came up with the 10K month. Like, what does 10K mean? If you live in Iowa, yeah, maybe you're balling out of control. I could tell you right now, being in Southern California, 10K months are not going to take you very far, because the other thing you have to remember is 10K gross does not mean 10K take home. If you make 10K in a month, and I'm talking about 10K cash, because people have all sorts of definitions of what a 10K month is, right? You could have a 10K month and have zero in your account because somebody paid their first deposit and they haven't paid the rest of it yet. Like, everybody measures this different. So first, don't get caught up in the number that people are displaying, because let me tell you, there's a lot of manipulation out there of the numbers. But you could have 10K gross, but if you have to pay your VA, you're paying your email provider, your software, all the things, right? And then your like taxes, right? Don't forget about taxes. A 10K month might actually end up being 4K take home. Right. So we have to really figure out, well, what do those numbers mean for us? And then the second thing that was transformational for me was, we're not really going after a revenue goal. Like, I know it sounds like, okay, we're going after this number. What we're really going after is a feeling that we think that number is going to provide. Oh, I've really made it when I've hit a 10K month or a 50K month or my first 6-figure month. It's like, well, the feeling is always there. You can choose to feel that way now. And the sooner you can feel however you think you're going to feel when you actually hit that revenue target, is going to make it a lot easier. And it's going to kind of, I don't know, put you in that state that's going to bring those opportunities to you more, versus putting it on the pedestal and making it like this big thing. And the bigger you make it, the harder it's going to be to achieve, which is why a lot of times if you're like, oh, I'm going for that 20K month, and you just focus on 20K, 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 if you change it just to say, you know what, I want a 22K month, boom, it might just happen, because now you've skipped over whatever this thing that you've been glorifying and obsessing about, and you've gotten to another number that means absolutely nothing to you. I've never seen any Facebook ad about a 22K month, right? So it's kind of like, you have to kind of take things off of that pedestal and make sure that the number you're going for is actually something that's meaningful to you, or else you're just going to be chasing the next thing.
Yeah. And one thing that you mentioned in there, which you went over very quickly, is that feeling, the feeling of actually achieving it, because I don't want to dive too much into manifestation, law of attraction, quantum physics, all of that, but that's really what it boils down to, is actually feeling like you've already done it. You have to actually feel it and believe it before it's going to show up in your 3D reality. Yeah. And those books that I'm linking below, does the Power of Habit talk about that? Because the Power of Intention does.
No, the Power of Habit is more like how you can set your goals and achieve it, but from an identity type of focus versus, let me just break these down into some steps and put them in my calendar. It's like, okay, good luck with that.
Yeah. Well, how's
that been working for you?
Exactly. There's another book called Happy Pocket Full of Money, which I'll also link, that really breaks down like the actual science behind how all of this works. So
I love science, obviously, but
have you read that book at all?
I haven't, but I will definitely have it in my cart.
Yeah, it's a really good one. It really simplifies things for people like me who don't understand science at all.
No, I love all that, all the science geeky stuff and reading. My kids are like, oh, what book is coming today? Like, it's like, we don't need to wait for Christmas. Amazon Prime Day is every day.
Right, exactly. Right. All right. So I want to, since we were talking about numbers, I want to dive into what people really want to hear about, which is all of these numbers behind the launches, all of these numbers that we're seeing people talk about. But what's actually happening. And of course, you don't have to mention any names. Please don't mention any
Right.
names. But I know you talked about this a little bit with those 10K and 20K months and how we need to factor in our freedom goals and taxes and expenses and all of that. But do you just want to dive into that a little bit more so that you can give people like a real look at what's actually happening behind the scenes?
Yeah. Okay. So I have one specific example I'll use. Obviously, I won't use any real names here, but let's just say because I used to, we talked about like my career transition, but how I got into the online world was as a coach and then becoming an ads manager for coaches and online providers before I decided to niche down and do everything I'm doing now. So anyway, so I got to manage the ad campaigns for a lot of names that most of your listeners will probably be familiar with. But I remember it was this one coach I was working with, and she was like, hey, let's promote. I just had like a 30K month. Like, this is really great in this niche because it's not like your usual niche. And, we really want to put that out there. And I'm like, okay, great. But her invoice was like 2 weeks overdue. And I was like, hey, kind of like, I have no problem doing this, but like, what's going on? She's like, oh, I don't have the money yet. I'll give it to you in like another week. I'm like, but what happened to this 30K launch? And at the end of the day, I think she had like some people sign up for her program, but it's like the payment plan. So even though she's saying it's like a 30K month, cash collected was probably closer to like maybe 9 or 10K, right? Which is still, a decent month, depending on what your goals are and things like that. But then cash collected minus your expenses, including your ads manager who was not getting paid at the time, it adds up where you don't have take home. And if the whole like illusion is, oh, I'm traveling to Paris and look at my brand photo shoots in front of like the Eiffel Tower and like all these things, all that stuff to create that illusion of success costs money. So that's just one thing. And then the other thing is when people have like these multiple 6-figure or 7-figure launches, I just want to put it in perspective of if you have, let's say, a 7-figure launch, but if it costs you $600,000 and let's just say expenses to get that $1 million launch, it's not quite the same effect to be like, yeah, we had a $400,000 launch, which is like the actual profit from that, right? It's still a great launch. But again, by the time you pay for your team members and all that, it's just a very, very different reality between your gross revenue, which is like total receipts collected eventually, right? Then there's cash collected, which is stuff that you actually have in now that's hitting your Stripe account or your bank account. Your take home, which is actually what's going from your merchant account into your personal account, right? So there's a lot of different ways you can break up $1 million. I mean, I think there's a very popular funnel software out there that gives out awards for hitting $1 million that will remain nameless, but there's people who are just buying those awards. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to figure out like, what are your goals? Again, going back to like, what's your definition of a fulfilled life and what do those numbers actually mean for you? And just stick to that. Put like the blinders on, like the horses, and just stay focused on what it is that you're trying to do. Because I know I used to get caught up in, wow, they did $1 million in 6 months. Like that was so quick. Like, why is it taking me so long? I know. Let me buy this next course with this super shiny sales page. Let me get another coach. Let me sign up for another mastermind. Oh, they use this tool. I'm going to switch from the tool I've known and loved for 5 years to the tool that they use, because that's clearly the secret to a $1 million launch, not knowing that their $1 million launch cost them $950,000. Like you might be ahead of the game when it comes to the numbers that really matter, and you don't know because people don't share that part. Not a lot of people. Some people do.
Yeah, I muted myself so my son wasn't screaming in the background, but I was laughing while you were saying a lot of those things.
Yeah.
First of all, the funnel software, just if you know, you know. But
yeah, what's up, bros? But anyway, no.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so funny. But yeah, I don't think there's enough transparency. I think it's becoming more commonplace now for people to share their actual real cash collected numbers, which I'm happy to see. But I also know, like you said, in the beginning stages or even middle, wherever you're at in your business, until you understand your worthiness more than anything, it's really easy to chase those numbers. And like you said, chase those tools that other people are using, buy the courses, investing with the people who are posting about all of these numbers. But more than anything, you need to understand, and correct me, or like tell me what your opinions are on this. You need to understand that your specific goals that you have for your life, for your business, are not the same as somebody who's having 7+ figure launches and potentially working 90 hours a week, right?
Exactly. Like you never really know the behind the scenes story of what we're seeing online. And I think I don't know who said this, so I'm not claiming it as my quote, but basically they were saying social media is like the highlight reel of the movie, but while you're living the behind the scenes with craft services and makeup people coming in at like 5 a.m. and all this stuff, people don't see all that. No, they just see, oh, here's like the highlight. Here's them winning the Oscar. Here's them winning the Emmy. But you don't see them getting up every morning at 5 a.m. to do a 3-hour workout. You don't see them like Beyonce doing a master cleanse for 10 days or however long she did it so she can fit in that super tiny dress in Dreamgirls, right? Like we don't see all the hard work that goes into it. Because if you're trying to get to a, let's just say your first, I don't know, 6-figure launch, like some guy did who is not married, who doesn't have kids, who has a team of 20, and you're comparing that to you, let's just say being married with a couple kids, you're the primary caretaker of the kids, and it's you and like a VA in the Philippines or something, or wherever your VA is, right? Why, like those aren't even on the same level. Like there's no way, like if you're going to try to do his launch, what are you going to figure out how to get 96 hours in one day? Like that's going to be impossible. And then you're going to be disappointed because you had unrealistic expectations, think that it's not for you, think that you're falling behind everybody else, when really you're probably ahead of where most of the people are, because the only people who actually fail at this game are the people who give up.
Yep. Oh, I love that. The only people who fail are the ones that give up. Yeah, no, that's so true. And I have personally gotten stuck in the comparison trap more times than I can count by looking at, like you said, people who were single, or maybe if they had kids, maybe they have childcare all the time, or like you said, have the massive teams. And that's actually why I created this podcast. It's literally called Behind Their Business, so that we can see what's happening behind the business, because
well, behind most businesses is like the hot mess express. Like even for those big launches, it's like, well, how do you think it is managing 20 different personalities? Like it's not like they're just waking up like, oh, let me go sip my pina colada by the pool with my laptop for this photo for my ad. It's like, no, like they're still going through it too. Like everybody has their own thing that they're dealing with, and you are like, you have your stuff, they have their stuff, everybody just has their stuff. Like it's not like you get to some level and automatically it's just like, oh, I have no more business problems because I'm making this amount of money. And I think Alex Sharfin says something to the effect of, if you have a successful business, you'll always have problems, or something. Like the more you grow, the more problems you'll have. I don't know, it's Google it, but he's basically saying like, if you don't have any issues or problems in your business, you're not growing.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even fathom the number of issues that companies like Amazon have, or Walmart. Like they're just filled with problems.
Oh, Amazon, I can tell you, Amazon made a $5,000 mistake with us once. So they had to credit us $5,000. So yeah.
Can you share that story? Do you mind sharing that story?
Okay. So here's the thing.
Intrigued.
So as a financial planner, I'm always like, max out your HSA, max it out. Like this was our FSA. So your flexible spending account. This is the one where you use it or lose it. So if you don't use it on like healthcare supplies or whatever, by the end of the year, it's gone forever, versus your health savings account where it rolls over. You can invest it, a whole bunch of stuff you can do there. So we had an FSA at my employer at the time. I was like, oh, we have to use this stuff. So I was like, bright idea. Why don't I just order a bunch of stuff on Amazon that's on like the list of approved purchases and just return it. So that way we've used it. It's people can still use the product. Like it's a win-win for everybody, right? We don't lose our money. So condoms were on the list. I was like, great. I'll just buy a bunch of condoms from Amazon. I will just return them so somebody else can use them. We'll get our money back. That way we haven't lost this money. So before I did that, I was like, let me just double check I can do this. So I'm chatting with Amazon. They're like, yeah, you could totally do that. It's a returnable item, not a problem. All right, cool. So pay now $5,000 of condoms or whatever it was. Go to return it. They're like, oh, this is a non-returnable item. And I was like, no, I have a screenshot of a chat that said it was. They're like, oh, well, that person made a mistake. So we're going to go ahead and credit your account back and just keep them. So we were stuck with like all these boxes of condoms for like months. We ended up like giving them away like during like my sister-in-law's garage sale as like freebies. Like, oh, hey, thanks so much for buying this old crib. Here's a package of like 25 condoms for you. So like, and then like we had kids like sneaking up to the side, like, can I just get one of them? Like, here's a whole 10, have fun. Not too much though, but just in case you do, So yep, that's my Amazon condom $5,000 story.
I'm dying laughing right now. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing.
So yeah, so every business has problems.
Right. Exactly. Moral of the story.
Moral of the story.
Right. Or if you need any condoms, Portia, maybe.
Yeah, well, no, they're gone now. They're gone. So, like I said,
don't go to Portia.
Don't go to me anymore. No.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so funny. So, first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing all of that, especially that incredible story at the end. But for people who are really like struggling with these expectations that they have for themselves and just trying to manage it all and not get into that comparison trap. I know that's a lot of what we've been talking about in this episode. Do you have like maybe one big tip, like as one big takeaway that they can start implementing in their life?
Yeah, my biggest takeaway would be to take some time to just sit, be quiet, which I know for me is very hard to do because my mind is always racing like, what do I have to, I'm hungry, what's for lunch? Did I forget a kid somewhere? Right? But like actually sit and figure out what would be your ideal life, fulfilled life. Think about different areas. What does that look like for you? How much do you need for that life to actually happen? And make that your goal. Now, maybe that's a far stretch from where you are right now. Break it down in increments. If you're at like a level 3 right now and you're like, okay, I know what my level 10 is, figure out what level 4 is and use that for your business, right? So that will also help you too with like your goals. So if you're making 2,000 a month or 20,000 and you're like, well, I want to be making 50,000, break it down. You know, it's like, well, you know what? If you're at that $2,000 level, aim for 3,000, right? If you're at that 20,000 level, shoot for 25, prove to yourself you can do it, and then keep kind of going from there. But like really just define success for yourself, because if you let other people do it, it's going to be a moving target that's going to be frustrating. It's going to be draining. You're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel like you're not enough. Like all the negative feels come with somebody else telling you what success is. And you need to figure out how to define that for yourself.
Love it. That's the perfect way to end this episode. Thank you for sharing all of that. And if people want to connect with you, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, the best place will be helloportia.com. So that's going to be Portia, P-O-R-T as in Tom, I-A. It's not like the car, it's from Shakespeare. So helloportia.com. And that's going to be the hub of everything else that's going on from there.
Perfect. Yes. Go find Portia. Go learn from her because she is brilliant when it comes to the financial side of running a business. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me.